We're going to be speaking, hopefully, with Jess Phillips in a bit, the Minister for Safeguarding and Violence Against Women and Girls, about this new plan, a trial plan, in a way, to embed domestic violence specialists in control rooms where they're taking that first 999 call. Many people getting in touch thinking this is almost a no-brainer, but the crucial bits, is that actually there needs to be follow-up after that, so that's something we'll ask her. Also pointing out that it's not just women, that in fact there's men too, and the nerve-wracking nature of that, and just a real general feeling that something needs to be done. We all remember, don't we, Jess Phillips reading out, do you remember that list?
Yeah, she's done it for a few years, hasn't she?
She has, a list of names, and then I think the last time she said, I'm just weary, absolutely weary. Of having to read these names out. Minister, I believe that we managed to get communication with you. We were just talking about, and in fact, Ian Dale earlier on our news panel was mentioning how he's relieved, not someone who always supports Labour, but he's relieved that you particularly are in charge of this. There must be a huge sense of responsibility, because we know it's a passion project of yours. When we look at the embedding of these specialist experts within 999 control rooms, it feels actually like a no-brainer. Why do you need to trial it? Why not push ahead on it? Because I think what people want is action.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Sorry, I just had the control person speaking in my ear, so I think I got all of your questions. No, not at all. You're absolutely right to say, why do we trial it? And I am very, very weary with waiting for anything. But the truth is to stand something up safely and make sure that it is a safe response. Will take time and training to get it done. Like, I can't just conjure up hundreds of domestic abuse specialists that don't already have a job doing something very vital on the front line overnight. And also, I think we've got to learn about which of the sort of methods of having these specialist teams, both with police officers and external specialists in them, which works the best before we roll it out across the country. But, you know, to be honest, Kate, I'd like it to have happened yesterday, not tomorrow.
And it's part of a whole raft of measures, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, so the 999 control specialists as well, what we're talking about today is the beginning of the use of the domestic abuse protection orders, which are orders like any victim in the country who's ever had a protective order, a non-molestation order, for example, or a restraining order, knows that often those don't get reacted to. They don't have the power of arrest attached to them. So we are putting on the books and getting going on these orders that will have the power of arrest, that they can have long-term times, people can be tagged, the perpetrators can be tagged, and if you breach one of these orders, there is the threat of imprisonment for up to 5 years. So, like, these are the sort of very first steps. But you're absolutely right. This will be part of a much broader package in government across many different government departments to see how not just victims are treated in the system, but real focus on why people end up being perpetrators in the first place, and how we stop that, and how we stop the terrible sense of repeat. Most people who, for example, are murdered, and this law was is named in honour of Renee Muda, who was killed after making 4 calls to the police on the night she was killed and no one coming. Like most people who are killed, it's after many incidences of previously ignored domestic abuse. So how do we stop the perpetration at the first instance rather than waiting until we get to that point?
Let's move on to a couple of other issues. Jess Phillips, you are now a minister, a very powerful person in the country. No, you are. You are a minister, and you've probably waited this many years. If somebody got in touch with you today and offered to buy you some suits and dresses as a minister, would you take their money?
Well, the truth of this, and obviously I think you're alluding to the story regarding the Prime Minister, is that probably somebody turned up to his office and said, oh, you know, I think you need a fancy suit, here's one, and he probably took it. I don't know that he was going out and seeking it. I have to say, nobody has offered me any clothes.
That's how it happens? Somebody turned up at his office with a suit? I mean, it's thousands of pounds. I mean, that's got to be organised. That's a lot of money.
No, but you'd be surprised how many people are obsessed with the way that politicians look and try and give you unsolicited advice about what you should and shouldn't wear.
But then in return, we're talking about Lord Wahid Ali, who then got access to Downing Street. Apparently he's got a pass. So isn't that closed for access, cash for access? Does he not have any access?
I don't think he does have a past.
What's in it for him, then? Why does he want to spend thousands of pounds on somebody's suits?
Because I think he probably wanted a Labour government. He's been a Labour peer for many, many years, and he wanted to support a Labour government. But you'd have to ask him. He desperately wanted a successful Labour government, as did I. And had I had the means to give Keir Starmer something that might have helped, I might have offered that. I don't know. I don't know. You'd have to ask them.
Jess Phillips, you tweeted in August 2022 about then the Prime Minister Boris Johnson. I assume Boris Johnson is busy trying to find a donor to pay his energy bills and can't make the time to govern our country and come up with any plan to help with yours. There are a lot of people out there who would want to see Keir Starmer get things right, whether it's the winter fuel allowance or it's the issue out in Gaza, whatever it might be going on. But would you say the same thing about him, that he's too busy trying to find a donor to pay for his clothes or his Arsenal tickets?
No, because the difference between Boris Johnson and Keir Starmer is that Keir Starmer is actually governing the country. My chief complaint about Boris Johnson, and I have to say, since, as you say, I'm a very powerful person now that I'm a minister, I've been a minister for 11 weeks and I have had to pick up things that have been waiting on this very, very vital issue. So the domestic abuse protection orders that I was just talking to you about, the law was passed for these to be put into existence 4 years ago. Why on earth did it take me just 11 weeks to get them off the ground? What on earth have they been doing? So actually, like Keir Starmer, my experience of him is that he's not going around looking for anything, or he does like talk about football too much. I'm not going to deny that. But my experience of him and his number 10 operation is that they are breathing down my neck to get results in the things that we care about. And for me, that's violence against women and girls.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're doing is you're saying you're cracking on with the job, aren't you? Because there's so much pressure, expectation, dare I even say hope that these things will be solved. And I guess really what Adol's alluding to, as well as the headlines that have been there all week, is how the kind of optics have gone so askew. You know, I mean, on the front page of the Daily Express, they're featuring an RAF veteran from a group of people that we've had on the programme many times. I don't think we've necessarily spoken to Jack Barlow himself. You know, he survived atomic bomb tests, which have caused him injury. He's had cancer. He's genuinely terrified, as a pensioner, about what's going to happen this winter. Nobody would have expected that headline of a brand new Labour government that swept into power with such a majority. How is it going so wrong? Because I think then people start to lose confidence and feel it's all a bit amateurish.
Of course, but, you know, on that specific gentleman that you have raised, what I would very much hope is that somebody is ensuring that he is, for example, accessing any loss in his winter fuel allowance, so that he is able to access, for example...
He's just over the limit. That's the problem.
But the Household Support Fund will probably be available in his area, and I would very much encourage him to get in touch with his MP to make sure that he can access that. However, what I would say is, of course, I don't want to make that decision. Of course, I absolutely don't, especially for people like him, for people like my father, who frankly gave it to my kids. It is much less of a concern. But of course, we don't want to make those decisions. I don't want to make lots of... I also want to do things much, much quicker than I'm able to do, because actually, when we enter into office, what we found certainly in the Home Office was some absolutely wild holes in our finances, and expectations of money had been spent but not accounted for. And I'm not saying that as an excuse, and I agree with you. I think that the optics and wanting to provide hope to people is something that I would absolutely want to be doing.
Jess Phillips, can we quickly talk about what's happening in the Middle East? You have been quite unique in many ways in the Labour Party. You took a stance as Shadow Minister when you resigned over the Labour leadership's stance on Gaza at the time. This week, we have seen a real escalation. The Lebanese ambassador suggesting we could get doomsday-type scenes if there is a ground invasion by Israel in Lebanon. We've seen the most horrific attack by Israel, claims that it is Israel, although they haven't yet accepted responsibility, but on personal devices where civilians have died. Jeffrey Nice, KC, who prosecuted Slobodan Milosevic, has called it criminal. And he's also said that Western governments simply aren't doing enough to bring a ceasefire. Do you think your government should be doing more? And I know your constituents. I'm from your constituents. They will feel, they feel very passionate about this. Do you think that your constituents are happy that your government is doing enough?
Well, I mean, today, David Lammy has called very much for a ceasefire. That has literally happened. So the Foreign Secretary in our country is seeking to work with partners to ensure that there is a ceasefire on all sides and an opening of a dialogue in the situation that is coming out of Lebanon. And I have to say, on day one of David Lammy being the Foreign Secretary, he commissioned a review into the humanitarian law and how Israel was what was going on around humanitarian laws. Day one. So, like, we are not without being concerned about how this war is playing out and seeking to do things about it.
Would you go as far as calling for sanctions on Israel, further sanctions, further weapon bans, and actually economic sanctions on a country like Israel if they don't abide by ceasefire rules?
I mean, the ceasefire, there's not ceasefire rules. So I would absolutely urge any country and our country, and this goes for all countries, that we have to live by humanitarian laws, and that every country should absolutely be doing this, both in the Middle East and wherever they are. And the government will take action when they don't, within their power. Now, it doesn't matter, actually. You know, we will do whatever we can with our allies in both Europe and across the world, and certainly with the United States, to be seeking a de-escalation in tensions. That is what countries have a responsibility to do, to try and de-escalate. And David Lammy has called for a ceasefire.
I know you're busy. Thank you for squeezing us in. Jess Phillips, good to talk to you this morning. Thank you.